All right, Secondary Math 2 class. So we are starting a new unit today, but it builds on our unit last time where we are factoring quadratics. Okay, so in Secondary Math 2, you're going to hear this word a lot from here on out. So quadratics, okay, that's these expressions or equations where the highest power is 2. Okay, so let's practice factoring quadratics some more. So let's look at number 1. Okay, so when we're factoring quadratics, we always have to look at the last number first. Okay, so we look at positive 6, and we need to say what two numbers multiply to give me a positive 6, but when I add them together, it'll be negative 5. Okay, so let's just try 1 times 6. Okay, well, if I add those together, that's going to give me 7. Okay, so we know that's not it. What about 2 times 3? If I add those together, I get a positive 5. Okay, I'm looking for a negative 5, so we know that's not it either. Okay, well, what about a negative 2 and a negative 3? Because remember, a negative times a negative will still give me a positive. Okay, but negative 2 minus 3 more, now we get negative 5. Okay, so once we have our two numbers, we can go ahead and just put them in our parentheses. Okay, our variable goes in front, so this time it's a v. Okay, so v minus 2 in one, v minus 3 in the other. Okay, awesome. Let's look at number 2 because we haven't seen one of these before when we're factoring. So the last number is negative 49. Okay, we need it to, when multiplied together, well, we need two numbers that multiply to give us negative 49. Okay, but then we need it to add to what? What is that middle number there? Okay, that's actually 0x in the middle. Okay, you see how v squared comes first, then just 1v? Well, in number 2, we have x squared, but then we need that 1x. So we actually need these two numbers to add to 0. Okay, so we know that one of them has to be negative and one has to be positive to give me a negative. So 1 times negative 49, well, that's going to give me negative 48. So we know that one is not it. Okay, well, 2 doesn't go into 49, 3 doesn't, 4 doesn't, 5 doesn't, 6 doesn't, 7 does. Okay, but it has to be one positive and one negative. Okay, well, what is 7 minus 7? It's going to give me 0. Okay, so this is actually what's called a special case. Okay, I want you to write this on your paper. This is called a difference. Okay, difference comes whenever you see a subtraction sign of squares, because technically 49 is a perfect square root number. Okay, so difference of squares are always going to factor to look like this. Okay, you have your two parentheses, your variable in one, just like that. Okay, well, difference of squares is always going to be plus a number and then, whoops, minus that number. Plus 7, minus 7. Okay, difference of squares. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at number 3. So we need to look at negative 72 first. So we need two numbers that are going to multiply to give me a negative 72, but add to give me that positive 1. Okay, well, we know to get a negative 72, 1 has to be positive and 1 has to be negative. That's going to give me negative 71, so that's definitely not close. 2 and negative 36 is going to give me negative 34, not close. Does 4 go into 72? I'm going to check on my calculator. 72 divided by 4, yes. Okay, 4, negative 18, that's going to give me negative 14. Okay, not quite. Okay, what about 6? Nope, 6 doesn't go into it. What about, oh wait, yes it does. 6, negative 12, that's going to give me negative 6. We're getting closer to positive 1, but not quite. Okay, well, what about 72 divided by 8? negative 9. This is going to give me negative 1. Ooh, we're so close. Okay, well, what about, let me come over here. What about if we switch these two? Instead of a negative or a positive 8 and a negative 9, let's do a negative 8 and a positive 9. When added together, those two are going to give me positive 1. Whoops, sorry, just bumped the camera. Okay, so we found our two numbers. It took us a minute, but we still found it. That's okay. Okay, so write your two parentheses. Okay, my variable this time was a p. So p minus 8 for negative 8, p plus 9 for positive 9. And there's our answer, factored. Okay, let's look at number 4. So this one's a little bit different. So the first thing we always want to check is, in fact, I want you to make this note on your paper. Do they have something in common? Okay, it's two terms. Okay, just two of them. But do these two terms have anything in common? Do you see one in one that the other one also has? Yes, they both have at least one r. So we can factor out that r. Okay, well, if I had two r's or r squared and I factored out 1, I'm left with 1r. If I had 1r here and I factored it out, I'm just left with the negative 6. And that guy is factored. So when we're factoring, the first thing we want to do is see do they have something in common, right? Up here, they didn't, so we had to factor. On number 1, they didn't, so we had to factor. Same with number 3, they did not have all something in common, so we had to factor. Okay, so now we're taking it just a little bit farther, okay? It's literally just one more step that we have to do. So we are going to now solve each equation by factoring. Okay, that means we're going to get an answer. But let's just go ahead and ignore that equals 0. Let's factor it the exact same way we've been factoring. So we need to look at negative 24 first. Okay, well, what two factors will multiply to negative 4, but add to negative 2? Okay, well, I have 1 and negative 24. Remember, 1 has to be positive, 1 has to be negative to give me negative 24. It's going to give me negative 23, so nope. 2 and negative 12, that's going to give me negative 10, nope. 3 and negative 8, that's going to give me negative 5, nope, but we're getting closer. Okay, what about 4 and negative 6? That one, when 4 take away 6, I will get negative 2. Okay, so we found our two numbers. Okay, so next thing we do is the exact same thing. Write it in our parentheses. Okay, this time it was x, so x plus 4 minus 6. And now just bring down that equals 0. Okay, the equals 0 part is important for our next step. Okay, so for our next step, we actually take each piece and we're going to set it equal to 0 and solve. Okay, so I'm going to take x plus 4 equals 0, and I'm going to take x minus 6 equals 0. I'm going to take each piece and solve. Okay, well, let's just look at the green one, x plus 4. So to get x by itself, I need to get rid of plus 4. Well, the opposite of plus 4 is minus 4. Okay, so x is all by itself. X equals 0 minus 4, negative 4. Okay, do the same thing for 6. The opposite of minus 6 is add 6. So x is all by itself. 0 plus 6 is 6. So we actually get two answers here. So on your homework, when you're solving, you actually get two answers. Okay, our first one was x minus 4. Our second one was x equals 6. Okay, so literally our only other step was to solve it. Okay, but here's a little hint. Isn't negative 4 just the opposite of positive 4? Isn't positive 6 just the opposite of negative 6? Okay, just take these guys, and do their opposites. Okay, let's look at number 6. So we have a positive 42. So we need two numbers that multiply to give me positive 42, but are going to add together to give me negative 13. Okay, so let's just try and find some. So we have 1 and 42. 1 plus 42 is 43, so no. 2 and 21, that's going to give me a 23, no. Okay, 42 divided by 3, let me see. 42 divided by 3. So 3 and 14, that's going to give me 17. No, we're getting close though. Okay, 4 doesn't go into it. 42 divided by 6. 6 times 7. 6 plus 7 gives me a positive 13. Okay, we're close. We need a negative 13. But remember, to get a positive, you can always multiply a negative times a negative. Now I get my negative 13. Okay, so we have our two numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and write them in my parentheses. Okay, our variable is x, minus 6, minus 7. Okay, bring down your equals 0. And now we can take each piece and just solve for x. Okay, so I'm going to take my first piece, x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, so let's solve that one really quick. The opposite of minus 6 plus 6, 0 plus 6 is 6. So my first answer is 6. Okay, let's take my second piece. X minus 7 equals 0, the opposite of minus 7. Add 7. 0 plus 7 is 7. Or think the opposite of the two numbers you got, right? I got negative 6 and negative 7, so my answers are positive 6 and positive 7. Nice job. Okay, let's do number 7. So I need to look at positive 24. Two numbers that multiply to give me positive 24, but add to give me negative 11. So I have 1 times 24, but when I add those, I'm going to get 25, so that's not it. 2 times 12, that's going to give me 14. 3 times 8, ooh, that's going to give me positive 11. But we're looking for a negative 11, remember? So what do? We know that a negative times a negative still equals a positive, but now I get my negative 11. Okay, so I found my two numbers. Put them in your parentheses. So this time it's n, and minus 3 for negative 3, and minus 8. Let's bring down that equals 0 because now we just take each piece and solve for 0. So I'm going to take my n minus 3 piece first, set it equal to 0, and solve. The opposite of minus 3, add 3, n equals 3. Okay, that's my first answer. Take my second piece, n minus 8 equals 0, and let's solve. The opposite of minus 8 is add 8. 0 plus 8 is 8. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at number 8, because number 8 is a little bit weird, right? So, just like on number 4, look back at number 4, they had something in common. They had an r in common. Well, what do these guys have in common? Ignore the equals 0. What do they have in common? They have a v. Okay, we can actually factor out a v, just like we did on number 4. Okay, well, if I had two v's and I take away 1, I'm left with 1v. If I had 1v but I took it away, I'm just left with minus 3. Okay, bring down that equals 0. And we're kind of doing the same thing here. We just didn't have to factor. We did not have to find the two numbers because they had something in common. Okay, but we're going to take each piece and solve for 0. Okay, so just v equals 0. Oh, guess what? That's an answer because v is already by itself. Nice. That was easy. Okay, take my second piece. V minus 3 equals 0. Now we got to get rid of that minus 3, so we add it. And v equals 3. That one was kind of easy, because remember, when you are factoring, if they have something in common, you must factor it out first, okay? All these guys where we have to find the two numbers, they don't have, all three of these terms don't have something in common. But when it's two terms, they might. When it's three terms, they might. Okay, let's look at number 9. Last two examples. Number 9. So, notice on all 5, 6, 7, and 8, sorry, I'm going all over the place. They're all equal to 0. Well, this guy, one side doesn't equal 0. Okay, so here's what we got to do. We need to make it equal 0. Okay, one side must equal 0 in order to solve. Okay, since I always want to keep my variable with the squared attached positive, I'm going to move these guys. Okay, so we have to do the opposites. So the opposite of a positive 15n is going to be a negative 15n. That's going to move him over there. And the opposite of minus 56 is going to be a positive 56. Again, that's going to move him over there. Okay, so our new equation on this side is going to be n squared, that was already over there, minus 15n, and plus 56. Now it all equals 0. Okay, we had to make it equal 0 in order to solve, just like we've been doing. Okay, so now let's solve. So we have plus 56 is our last number, so we need two numbers that multiply to give me 56, but are going to add together to give me negative 15. Okay, well I know that 1 and 56 probably won't, maybe 2. Okay, what's 56 divided by 2? That's going to give me 28. No, that gives me 30, so that's not it. Okay, 56 can't be divided by 3. 56 divided by 4 is 14. It's going to give me 18. We're getting closer, but no. Okay, what about 56 divided by 7? Because 6 doesn't go into it, or 5. That's going to give me 8. Okay, 7 plus 8 is 15. But we're looking for negative 15, remember. So all we got to do, turn this guy negative. Negative 8 negative, because it still gives me that positive, and boom, there we go. Okay, we found our two numbers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, zoom out for you so you can see the whole thing. So I'm going to write it in my parentheses. Okay, it all equals 0, remember, so I have n minus 7 and minus 8. Okay, and now I can just take each piece and solve. Okay, so let's take n minus 7, set it equal to 0 and solve. Add 7 to both sides. Our first answer is positive 7. Okay, take our next piece. N minus 8 equal to 0 and solve. Got to add 8 to move it. So our next answer is positive 8. So the only other thing we had to do on number 9 was make it equal 0. We had to move these guys over there so that one side would equal 0. You must make it equal 0 in order to solve it. Okay, so let's do one more example. Okay, so look at number 10. Does number 10, whoops, I'm zooming the right way. Does number 10 equal 0? No, it doesn't. It equals 16, so we need to make it equal 0. So what is the opposite of a positive 16? We subtract 16. We want to move it over to that side. Okay, so now we have x squared plus 6x that was already over there, but now we have a negative 16, and it all equals 0. Okay, so now we can look at negative 16. Ooh, we need numbers that'll give me negative 16, but we'll add to positive 6. So one needs to be positive, one needs to be negative. So I know 1 and 16 probably won't. What about 2 and negative 8? That's going to give me a negative 6. Oh, we're so close. Okay, we're looking for a positive 6. Okay, we'll just switch these guys, right? We almost have it, so let's change that to a negative 2 and a positive 8. Negative 2 plus 8, positive 6. Okay, we found our two numbers. So go ahead, put them in your parentheses. So I have x minus 2, x positive 8, so plus 8. It all equals 0. So now we can take these pieces and solve for x. So I have my first piece, x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, opposite of minus 2 is plus 2. So x equals 2. And let's take our last piece. X plus 8 equals 0. Okay, subtract that 8 to get rid of it. So our other answer is negative 8. And there we go. Okay, so on our notes today, we practiced just factoring, okay, just getting to the part where they have their parentheses, but then we learned how to take it a step farther and actually solve, find the answers, okay, which is basically just the opposites of what's in the parentheses, right?